The first time Claire noticed something wrong with the mirror, she thought it was just fatigue. She'd been working late shifts at the hospital, her eyes red from staring at monitors and paperwork. When she leaned over the bathroom sink to splash water on her face, the reflection didn't move quite right. Her hand rose a fraction of a second too late. Her lips parted after hers had already closed. It was subtle, but enough to make her freeze. She laughed nervously, blaming exhaustion, but the mirror didn't laugh back. Claire had inherited the old Victorian house on Ashford Lane from her grandmother, a place filled with creaking floors, drafty hallways, and far too many mirrors. Her grandmother had been obsessed with them ornate frames, silver-backed glass, some cracked, some fogged with age. Every single room had at least one. The largest stood in the upstairs hallway, a towering antique with clawed wooden feet and a frame carved with twisting vines. Claire remembered being warned as a child, do not look in the mirror after midnight. She'd always dismissed it as just a silly superstition. Until now, the strangeness began with whispers. At night, when the house settled into a deep, unsettling silence, Claire would hear faint voices. They weren't coming from the walls or from outside, but from the mirrors themselves. One evening, curiosity got the better of her. She leaned close to the hallway mirror, pressing her ear against the cold surface of the glass. The whispers grew louder, clearer, forming words that made her blood run cold. "We see you." She stumbled back, heart pounding against her ribs. But her reflection didn't match her movement. It lingered for a moment, staring back at her, its lips curling into a slow, deliberate smile that she hadn't made. That night, she couldn't bear it. She ran through the house, throwing sheets over every mirror she could find. But by morning, her efforts were undone. The sheets were gone, folded neatly at her bedside. Days passed, and the reflection grew bolder, more menacing. It began to mimic emotions she didn't feel, flashes of anger, deep sadness, a ravenous hunger. Once, she caught it licking its lips while she brushed her teeth. Another time, she saw it standing directly behind her in the glass, even though she was completely alone in the room. Her friends started to notice her growing paranoia. "You're just stressed, Claire," they'd say. "Mirrors don't do that. You need to get some sleep." But Claire knew better. She knew this wasn't just stress. The reflection staring back at her wasn't hers anymore. It was something else, something watching, something waiting. Desperate for answers, she began digging through her grandmother's old journals, stacks of leather-bound books filled with elegant, spidery handwriting. That's when she found it, entries about the mirror. Her grandmother had written of the glass between worlds, a thin veil separating the living from the hungry. The mirror remembers. One entry read, "It keeps what it sees." And sometimes, it wants more than just a reflection. Another entry, written in a shaky, frantic script, chilled her to the bone. "Never let it catch your eyes after midnight." That is when it hungers. Claire finally understood. Her grandmother hadn't been eccentric or strange. She had been a guardian. She had been protecting her. One night, the dread and curiosity became too much to bear. A morbid compulsion drew her out of bed and into the hallway. She stood before the towering mirror. The clock downstairs chimed midnight, and she held her breath. 12:01, 12:02. At 12:03 a.m., she looked up. Her reflection was already waiting. It smiled, tilting its head in a gesture that was both familiar and deeply alien. Then it spoke. "You shouldn't have looked." The voice came not from her mouth, but from the glass itself. The sound was hollow, echoing, like words spoken from the bottom of a deep, dark cavern. Claire screamed, stumbling backward, her hands flying to her mouth. But the reflection didn't vanish. It didn't retreat. It stepped forward, pressing its hands against the inside of the glass. The surface rippled like water. From that night on, the mirror actively tried to draw her in. Whenever she passed it, she felt a powerful tug, a strange gravity pulling her toward the glass. Her reflection would beckon to her, its lips moving, whispering promises she could almost hear. "We can be one. You don't belong out there. Come home." She resisted with all her might, but each day grew harder. Her body weakened, dark circles formed under her eyes, and she began seeing shadows moving in the corners of every room. The house itself seemed to breathe around her, its old timbers groaning in anticipation. Desperate, Claire found a local historian who specialized in occult artifacts. After hearing her story, his face grew grim. He told her the mirror was likely a hungry glass, a cursed object that fed on the souls of the living. "There's only one way to stop it," he said, his voice low. "You have to break it, but you must be careful the mirror doesn't die quietly. It will fight back." Armed with a heavy hammer from the garage, Claire approached the hallway mirror, her knuckles white. Her reflection grinned, its eyes glowing with a black, empty light. "Do not look in the mirror," it whispered, its voice a perfect echo of her own. "Or you will see yourself die." She ignored the warning and swung the hammer with all her strength. The glass cracked, a spider web of jagged lines spreading across the surface. But instead of breaking, the reflection screamed. The sound was deafening, a chorus of thousands of voices shrieking from every mirror in the house at once. The walls shook, the lights flickered and died, and the air grew thick and heavy with shadows. Claire swung again, hitting the center of the web. This time, the mirror shattered, shards of silvered glass raining onto the floor, but the reflection didn't vanish. It crawled out of the broken frame, a thing of bleeding shadows and fractured glass, its body impossibly knitting itself together. The creature lunged, its razor-sharp edges cutting her arm. Claire fought back, screaming as she slammed the hammer into its chest. Each strike broke more glass, but the creature kept reforming, its shards knitting together like bone and sinew. It whispered with every ragged breath, "You are mine." Summoning her last ounce of strength, Claire dropped the hammer, grabbed a large, pointed shard from the floor, and plunged it directly into the creature's heart. The entire house screamed. Every remaining mirror in every room exploded at once, shards flying like knives through the air. Then, complete and utter silence. Claire woke up on the floor, bleeding from dozens of small cuts, but she was alive. The mirrors were gone, reduced to nothing more than glittering dust on the floorboards. The house felt lighter, the oppressive atmosphere lifted as if it could finally breathe again. She had one. The next morning, she stepped into the bathroom to wash the blood from her face. She looked into the small, simple mirror above the sink, and her reflection smiled, a fraction of a second too late. The warning remains, do not look in the mirror, because you never know what's looking back. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.